So for today's video, I am finally back with a brand new solved true crime case. I know I've been gone for so long and I'm so sorry about that. I'll explain where I've been and everything at the end of the video because I don't feel like it really fits in with this kind of video. So if you do want to know about me and like my personal life, just wait until the end. But today I want to talk about this true crime case. This one has been so requested pretty much ever since I started doing these types of videos. And I can see why, because I feel like this is such an important case for me to cover. My kind of audience on this channel, my demographic, is so varied, don't get me wrong, but my kind of main demographic is young people from the UK, and the victim in this case was a young person from the UK, and I feel like you guys could learn a lot from this case. Or say, like, if you have children, or if you're gonna have children in the future, like, this is such an important thing to talk about. You'll see as we're going on what I mean. But today we are going to be talking about the case of Breck Bednar. So as usual, before I get into this video, I just want to give my usual disclaimer. I mean absolutely no disrespect to anyone that I talk about in this video. This is all just information that I have found on the internet and I'm compiling into one video. So Breck David Lefebvre Bednar was a 14-year-old boy born on March 17th, 1999. His parents, Barry Bednar and Lauren Lefebvre, were originally from Michigan in the United States, but they moved over to the UK like 3 years before Breck was born, before they started their family, just because they felt it to be a lot safer than the US.
I felt safer being here because we don't have the gun crime problem that we have in the States.
Breck was the first child to Barry and Lauren, and he was a kind of miracle baby of sorts. Barry and Lauren were trying for years to have a baby and to start a family. They tried so many different medical treatments and none of them seemed to be working for years until finally Breck came in 1999. And then a couple more years down the line, Barry and Lauren tried again for another baby using medical treatments again. And if you know anything about like medical treatments to help you fall pregnant, sometimes they can make you fall pregnant with multiple babies at once. And that is exactly what happened. 2 years after Breck was born, Barry and Lauren had triplets called Carly, Chloe and Sebastian. So Breck was the oldest of 4 children at this point, and they all lived together in Surrey in England. In 2006, when Breck was 7 years old, his parents, Barry and Lauren, decided to split up and get a divorce, and they kind of moved apart, but they didn't move far away. So Barry moved out of the family home. It was Lauren and the children, but Barry still regularly saw all of his kids, like he didn't move far away. So as far as I'm aware, the information that I found, I think Barry still had a really good relationship with all 4 of his children, saw them regularly and things. Breck was a very happy person, just in general, always smiling. He was very sociable, very friendly. He was religious, the whole family was religious, they were Christian, they'd go to church every Sunday. Breck was also really intelligent. He was an A/A star student, which if you're in America, that's the equivalent of like an A+, like top grades. He also did further maths and triple science, which if you're not from the UK, you also won't understand that. But further maths is like 1 up from normal maths, and triple science is like 1 up from normal science. Like only the smartest of the smart kids can do those subjects. In the UK, you don't choose to do further maths or triple science. I mean, in some schools, I'm sure you could, but in most schools, you're normally chosen by the teachers to do those because they think you're that smart.
Mom, I got 3 merits for the history project I did.
Oh, really?
Hey,
Wow.
How did you get 3 merits? Whoa. I did really well.
So Breck was pretty much like a perfect child. Obviously there's no such thing as a perfect child, but he was smart, he was happy, he was well behaved, he was just a really good boy, really well brought up. From a very young age, Breck was very interested in like computers, technology, like online things, the internet, video games, just anything to do with technology. That was like his passion.
He was always good on the computer right from the start. He seemed natural at it. And as he was studying in school, it wasn't just for fun. He would be on the computer because he had a passion for it. He would literally take his computer apart, put it back together. And that sort of just sums him up, you know. Technology at his fingertips at all times.
When Breck was was around 13 or 14 years old, he began online gaming. So like they would play the games online and they'd be able to talk to each other live through like little headset things. I don't know much about it, but like you can talk to each other live while you're playing this game together. And because this was such a like popular hobby among boys at the time, I mean it still is. Think about how popular things like Fortnite are. It was so popular that at the time Breck's church decided to put together a group of 6 boys that could just like share and talk about it and like, I don't know, game together. Just like if like 6 church kids were really interested in knitting, they'd start a knitting club. They started an online gaming club so that these 6 boys could all like talk to each other, play together, and just like, I don't know, share that like interest with each other. So the 6 boys chose this particular server owned by an older boy named Lewis Danes. And even though Lewis didn't go to the church, he wasn't part of this like gaming group from the church, he quickly became like a friend of the boys, like, because they were gaming together for hours every night. And like I said, Lewis was a few years older than the rest of the boys, so they all started to see him as this kind of like cool older brother type figure. He would buy them older age rating games because they couldn't get them. They were 14 years old at this point and Lewis was 18, so he could buy the 18 rated games. He knew a lot more about gaming, about online things. Like, he was very knowledgeable and the boys all looked up to him like he was a big brother. And Lewis would tell the boys all these different stories about like his life and his job and what he did, and he sounded so cool. He was from Essex, but he moved over to New York. He worked for the Secret Services. He was a computer programmer by day. He owned different businesses and companies that all added up to multi-millions of pounds in these different companies. Like I said, the boys spent a lot of time online gaming, literally like 5 or 6 hours a night, which sounds like a lot, I know. But when you're 14 years old, you get home from school on a winter's day, like there's nothing to do, it's too cold to go outside. They would literally go on this game from the minute they got home from school until they went to bed. And that's kind of normal for teenage boys nowadays. And besides, it wasn't getting in the way, really. Like, Breck was still doing his homework, still having family time. He went to the Air Cadets. He was still attending every single one. He'd have dinner with his family every night. Like, he was well behaved. So if this game's making him happy, spending this much time on it, and it's not affecting his life, then what's the problem, really? He's spending a lot of time with his friends as well. Like, even if they're not in the room, he's still socialising with his friends for 5 or 6 hours every night.
Because Breck always had his door open in his room, sometimes I would just pop in. And when I would go in, he would say, "My mom's here." And James would say, "Hey Mom, how you doing?" And I'd say, "Oh, good." And I'd say, "I just came from dance class." And a dancing lady would pop up on the screen.
But before long, Breck's mother Lauren became a little bit suspicious about Breck's online gaming friends. Obviously, she knew the ones from the church, but there was one voice on this online live chat thing that she didn't really recognise.
Partly because his voice was very deep and distinctive. And when I asked Breck who it was, he referred me to a picture. And it was a picture of a really attractive young boy. And, I questioned Breck several times. "Breck, is that really him?"
And Breck explained this to his mum by saying, like, no, that's not his actual avatar. That's just a random picture because he can't show his real face because he's part of the Secret Services. And as you can imagine, Lauren, Breck's mother, when she heard that, she was like, "What are you talking about? That's a lie." But all the boys genuinely believed this. They thought that Lewis was an 18-year-old millionaire living in New York. He had all these different companies. He was part of the Secret Services. Like, they believed that this boy was so cool. Partly because they were so young, they were 14 years old, they were being told this by an 18-year-old boy. And when you're that young, an age gap like that seems really big, and you like trust older people, like you trust authority. And they also believed it because it was a very like gradual spiral of lies. It wasn't like Lewis met them and straight away said, "I work for the Secret Services, I'm a multimillionaire." Like, it was very gradual. The lies just built up on top of each other. Like, if someone said in your first conversation with them, "Hi, my name's Lewis, I am a multimillionaire, I work for the Secret Services," of course you're not going to believe them. You're going to be like, "Why are you telling me that in our first conversation?" You're going to think it's lies. If you've ever heard of the boiling frog analogy, that's often used to describe situations like this. So a lot of the time, frogs, when they're cooked, they're boiled alive. I don't know why that's how it's done, but it's how it's done. The analogy is that if you put a live frog straight into a boiling pot of water, it's going to sense danger and it's going to jump straight out. And that's just like Lewis going straight in the first conversation and saying, I work for the Secret Services, I'm a millionaire. The boys would have been like, this guy's lying. But if you put a live frog into some tepid water and you gradually turn up the heat, the frog won't sense any danger, it won't sense the temperature rise, and it'll boil alive in that pot. Much like if Lewis gradually built up the lies and built them up, then the boys are going to gradually believe more and more ridiculous lies. So if Lewis started off small with just, I live in New York, that's a good place to set the scene to be able to later say, I work for the Secret Services, I'm rich at 18, like things like that. But in reality, 18-year-old Lewis Danes did not live in New York, he was not a multimillionaire, he didn't work for any Secret Services or computer programming companies, as you probably guessed. Lewis was 18 years old, he wasn't lying about that, but he lived in Essex in England, which is not that far from where Breck lived in Surrey, so he didn't actually live in New York, like I said. He was unemployed, he was living on his own, in his own flat, and he was just grooming these 14-year-old boys, specifically Breck Bednar. So the boys all got pretty close. They were talking for hours every night, like I said, on these games, and they would talk about just like random things in their life, their hobbies, their passions, their goals in life, what kind of jobs they wanted when they were older. And obviously, as you can imagine, Breck Bednar's completely revolved around like computers, programming, technology. He was so passionate about everything to do with technology. And it was at this point when Lewis Danes told Breck that one of these many companies that he owned was actually in programming and computing and things like that. And he actually offered Breck a job when he was older if he wanted it. Like I said, he started off small with his lies, gradually leading up to him offering Breck Bednar a 6-figure salary job in programming and computering. He was 18 years old. He didn't have this job to offer Breck.
He told me at one point that Danes had made $2 million in Bitcoin trades and given it all the way to the Syrian rebels. I would say, Breck, really, you're saying this is a 17 going on 18-year-old boy and he's made $2 million already. Really, Breck?
But this wasn't the first time that Lewis Danes had groomed a young boy. His first target was actually a 13-year-old boy from the USA. Lewis really wanted this 13-year-old boy from the USA to travel over to the UK alone to come and stay with him for a bit and just like, I don't know, be friends or whatever. Who knows Lewis's real intentions, but that's obviously what he told this child. And so Lewis manipulated this boy so much to the point where this boy made his own PowerPoint presentation to show his parents, begging them to let him go over to the UK and meet this stranger that he met online. Obviously the boy's parents said, no, you're 13, no way are we going to let you travel halfway across the world alone to meet someone you don't know. And when this boy's parents said no, Lewis realised that there was no point in trying with that target anymore, and so he moved on to 14-year-old Breck Bednar, who obviously lived a lot closer than the USA. So like I said, Breck was really well behaved still. Like, his gaming didn't affect anything. He was still going to Air Cadets, he was still going to church, all these things. He was still really well behaved. But by the summer of 2013, all of that began to change, and very quickly as well. Breck completely stopped going to Air Cadets, which was one of his biggest hobbies. He loved Air Cadets. He quit that completely. He wouldn't go to church every Sunday. He'd still go sometimes, but definitely not as much as he used to do. He loved going to church as well. Kind of half stopped that. His schoolwork started slacking. He wasn't as well behaved at home. He wouldn't tidy his room. He wouldn't tidy up after himself. He was just, in general, kind of misbehaving and turning into a different boy than what Lauren and Barry had brought up. And his mother Lauren put this down to this kind of suspicious older gamer that she kept hearing. She knew that he was spending a lot of time with this boy. She didn't know him, so she didn't know like what his personality was like. She knew the other boys from the church. She knew that they were good boys. They were still good boys at this point, and only Breck was turning into someone different. So she put it down to this kind of suspicious older boy on the games. And now when Lauren would enter the room when Breck was gaming, the reception wouldn't be as welcoming. He wouldn't be as happy when she'd come in. The person on the other end of the line wouldn't say hi mum like they used to. And if you remember, whenever Lauren used to enter the room, a little dancer would appear on the screen, and now that little dancer had turned into a witch. She felt that whoever this kind of suspicious older gamer was, they were changing Breck. They were changing his values, his beliefs, his morals, stopped him going to church, just stopped him from behaving, and they were ruining Breck's relationship with her and Breck's life completely. Eventually, Lauren grew so worried about this suspicious older gamer that she felt that she really had to do something about it. And so she actually called the police.
Good evening, sorry police, how can I help?
Yes, I have a 14-year-old son, and there's an 18-year-old person, and I feel like he's being groomed, and it's been ongoing for a while, and I'm getting really concerned that this person isn't actually who he says he is.
And it wasn't just Breck's mum that was growing suspicious of Lewis, it was Breck's friends as well. Those boys that would online game with Lewis, they were starting to see through the cracks in this. They asked Lewis for real pictures of himself, because obviously he had to use someone else's picture because he was part of the Secret Services, and Lewis would just kind of avoid it every time, saying I can't, I'm part of the Secret Services. Even though they were saying, we know you're not, he wouldn't send these pictures. And then one time he did send pictures, but they were fake. The boys easily searched these pictures up and found that they belonged to someone else. The boys asked Lewis to video chat several times, and every single time he'd make up an excuse. Lewis supposedly had no social medias, which is pretty uncommon for a young boy in this day and age. Everyone's got social media pretty much. They even arranged to meet up with Lewis several times, and every single time Lewis would pull out in some kind of way, make an excuse. Eventually Lewis was becoming pretty controlling over Breck, and Breck didn't really notice it, but a lot of people that are being controlled and brainwashed and manipulated don't realise that that is happening. Breck just kind of saw Lewis as a really cool older brother, like I said, a really cool new friend online, but Breck's friends were noticing it.
And when we pulled him up on things which were obviously lies, he would get angry and he would sort of remove you from the server very quickly. Breck would join and Lewis would immediately pull him out of the channel with all of us. So it was just them on their own.
Even if you tried to talk to them in that channel, you would get moved out, so we're talking about private stuff.
But at the same time, Breck's friends didn't really think too much into it. I mean, you don't when you're 14. They just kind of thought that it was someone wanting to steal their friend off them. That happens all the time when you're young. Someone comes in and they try and steal someone out of your friend group. Happens all the time, and they just didn't think it was as serious as it was. But like I said, Breck's mother also realised that he was being controlled by this stranger online, and she just didn't know what to do. She knew she had to try and pull him away from his computer somehow, but she didn't know how she was going to do that.
James was changing all of his ideology, and Breck would use specific phrases all the time. Well, Lewis says I don't believe in God, so why should I have to go to church? Lewis says I don't make any messes, so why should I have to clean up? Lewis says I can get a Microsoft apprenticeship through him, and so I won't have to finish school. And I always had this preface that Lewis said.
Eventually, Breck's friends had enough of Lewis and the effects that he was having on them and on Breck. They just had enough, and so they decided to distance themselves from him.
I would talk to them and be like, listen, this guy's weird, and what he's saying doesn't add up. But unfortunately for a few of them, including Breck, they just did not listen at all and stuck with him.
But still, by December of 2013, Breck and Lewis had been friends for almost a year at this point, and things were getting worse. They weren't getting any easier. Things were just escalating, and Lauren knew that she had to do something to protect Breck. Breck allowed his mother Lauren to have a conversation with Lewis over live chat while Breck was in the room, just so that she could get an idea of who Lewis was, because obviously Breck thought of him as a friend, and so he wanted Lauren to see him as his friend as well. So Lauren sat with Breck and she had an online text chat with Lewis just about Breck and how she was feeling about the situation, how Lewis was feeling about the situation, and Breck just kind of hoped that maybe if his mum spoke to Lewis, it might get her off his case a little bit.
With Lewis telling me how to parent Breck. And at the end of the conversation, I got fed up. I said, why are you telling me how to raise my son? I said, Breck has told me that your parents weren't there for you, but I am there for Breck, and everything that I do is because I care about him and I love him.
It was at this point that Lauren felt like nothing was working. She had to take further action. Obviously, Breck just wasn't listening. He was too brainwashed to listen to her. The police investigation wasn't going anywhere. Nothing had come from that. All she could think to do was just to take Breck's technology away from him. Yes, it might make him sad. It's a punishment. But at the same time, it's protecting him. It's taking away the communication between him and this online predator. But Lewis was one step ahead. Lewis bought Breck his own mobile phone and mailed it to him so that they could still talk even when Lauren thought she'd taken away all his technology. He still had some form of contact with Lewis. Lauren also called all the other boys in this kind of online gaming group and their parents in for a meeting just to kind of voice her concerns about this other boy that they were playing with online, to see if any of the other parents felt the same way or if none of them knew, just to warn them. And Lauren felt like this meeting went really well. She felt like all the other parents were on her side. They were all in agreement about Lewis. They were all gonna closely monitor their sons as well. But what the parents didn't know was that Lewis had convinced Breck to take in a recording device into this meeting, record everything that was being said about Lewis, and then send it back to Lewis. After a few days, Breck ended up getting all his technology back, his computer, everything was back to him, but on the conditions that he didn't speak to Lewis. He changed the server that he gamed on because the server belonged to Lewis, and Breck agreed, and everything went back to normal. Breck was like the old Breck again. He was happy, he was well behaved. He didn't restart Air Cadets, but he started going to church regularly again. He was just completely back to his old self. Breck's mum really thought that that part of his life was gone. Lewis was gone, everything was back to normal, but it wasn't at all. Lewis was still on the scene, he was still talking to Breck, but now it was just so secretive. Obviously at this point everything had pretty much gone back to normal, so Lauren had pretty much forgotten that she'd even filed a police report in the first place. But what she didn't know was that police investigation never happened. The police never looked into Lewis Danes at all. And this absolutely infuriates me. They didn't even put Lewis's name into the system. That would have taken them minutes just to type in Lewis Danes, because Lauren gave them his name. She knew this information about him. They could have just typed his name into the database and things would have been much different. Had they just typed in Lewis Danes onto their kind of police system, they would have found that he'd been in trouble with the police before and that Lewis was a dangerous person. Lewis Danes had previous allegations of rape against a 15-year-old boy, a boy older than Breck Bednar, and Lewis had also been found with indecent images of children on his computer. But of course, the police work in this case was absolutely inexcusable. It makes me so angry because had they just searched up his name, they would have realised how dangerous this person was. Lauren would have realised that all of her fears were confirmed and she could take further steps to look after Breck. But of course they didn't, because the police couldn't be bothered. And had they just typed in those two words, Lewis Danes, into their system and found that he was an evil person and done something to protect Breck, I wouldn't be sat here today making this video, and Breck would be safe at home with his family. But like I said, things seemed to be going well. Lauren thought that Breck had cut Lewis off completely because Breck was completely back to his normal self, but like I said, of course that didn't happen. They were still talking, just now on the sly. And of course Lewis was still feeding Breck all these different lies, saying he owned all these different companies, he was a multi-millionaire, and Breck was still believing them, and it was just mounting up, and he believed every single word that came out of Lewis Danes' mouth. And then 2014 rolled around, and Lewis Danes decided to drop the biggest lie that he'd told so far. He told Breck Bednar that he was dying. He said that he was dying, he didn't know who to leave all this money to, he didn't know who to leave the businesses to, he was gonna die in a matter of months, and that he wanted to give everything he had to Breck Bednar, a 14-year-old boy that he had only ever met online. Then in February of 2014, Breck Bednar was due to go on a Spanish exchange trip with school.
And then I just hugged him, and we both said we loved each other. And as he walked away, I just thought, oh, I'm so proud of this boy. He's so tall and handsome and so clever, so clever in so many ways. And he walked away and just turned around and waved, got into the car, and off he went.
Breck was away in Spain for a week and he had the best time. All his friends said it was such an amazing holiday. He was constantly smiling, laughing, happy, just as he always was. And this was a really special trip because while he was there, Breck actually got his first ever girlfriend. He just had a really good time on his little exchange trip, and then he returned home on the 15th of February, and it was actually his dad's weekend to have the kids. So when he got back to the airport, his 3 younger triplet siblings and his father all came to pick him up from the airport, and they said he looked so happy at the end of his trip.
The triplet said when Breck was in the lift, he was sort of chatting with the girl and just so comfortable. And his brother Sebastian said, "That was the happiest I've ever seen Breck, Mom." And I said, "Why?" And he said, "Because he had his first girlfriend." And, his little brother noticed how happy he was with his first girlfriend.
So they all went back to Barry's house, the father's house, and the kids were due to stay there for a few days. But meanwhile, Lewis was still lying to Breck about how he was dying, how he wanted to hand over all his wealth and all of his businesses to Breck. As soon as Breck hit down in England after coming home from Spain, Lewis was begging him to go to his house so that he could sign over his wealth, so that he could give him these businesses. And of course, Breck believed him. He'd been believing him for the past year. He had no reason to doubt him, really. And so, like I said, Breck was home from his trip on the 15th, and then he asked his father Barry if he could go to a sleepover with a friend from school on the 16th. Of course, Barry said yes, thinking that this was just a friend from school. Like I said, Breck spent a lot of time on his computer and inside and stuff, so Barry was just happy that he wanted to go and, spend time with a friend in person. This wasn't a very common thing. So when Breck asked to go and spend time with his friend in person, of course Barry was going to say yes. He was really happy for his son. But as I'm sure you can guess, it wasn't a school friend that Breck was going to stay with. It was actually 18-year-old Lewis Danes, who had made Breck lie to his father about who he was going to stay with. Lewis had given Breck a whole script of things to say to his parents, to his father, so that his father would let him go and stay at this friend's house. He'd given him a fake name to give his dad, a fake story as to why he's going to stay with his friend, a fake story as to what Breck and his school friend were going to do on that night when he slept over. Lewis emailed Breck saying, "If your father asks where you're going on Sunday, say that you're going to meet a friend who is 14. His name is Edward Bly. He's invited you over to his dad's house for the day while he's visiting him, who lives in Caterham. Edward Bly's father also says that you might be able to stay the night depending on their plans." In Breck's head, he thinks that Lewis is just being really nice and helpful because obviously his parents aren't going to let him go and stay with someone they've never met. So Breck thinks that Lewis is just being really helpful, helping him come up with a story that will help him be able to go to his house and get all these businesses and all this money. But from Lewis's point of view, this was one of the smartest things he did in this whole case. He made Breck voluntarily give a fake name, a fake story completely, a fake family that he was going to stay with, so that nothing could be traced back to Lewis. And Breck was just so excited. He was so excited to go and see Lewis. He was so excited to meet this multi-millionaire friend that was going to sign over all this money to him, all these businesses. His dreams were about to come true at the age of 14, to own a massive programming company, have all this money that he could share with his parents. He was so excited. So on Sunday, February 16th, 2014, Breck Bednar went to meet 18-year-old Lewis Danes, a man who he had only ever spoken to online. At 7 a.m. that morning, Lewis had pre-booked a taxi to come and pick Breck Bednar up from his father's house and take him over an hour to where Lewis lived in Essex. And this was all just adding to the facade that Lewis was this multi-millionaire. He had money to burn to pay for Breck's taxi from Surrey all the way to Essex. That taxi journey would have been in its hundreds. That would have been such an expensive journey. And like, he's looking after Breck, and it's all just adding to this image that Lewis is this really cool older person that has so much to give Breck. And so Breck just isn't suspecting anything at this point. So anyway, Breck arrived at Lewis's flat in Essex, and things seem to have gone really well for the first 6 hours or so. They must have been talking about programming, maybe playing games, just talking together, and it seemed like it started really well. After a few hours, Breck even texted his dad asking if he could stay over for the night. They'd just ordered pizza, they were having so much fun. Breck told him that he'd just updated his programming software or something like that. He was saying, "You're going to be so proud of me, I'm learning so much new things with programming." And he just seemed like he was having a really good time for the first part.
I hope he had a good time for a while. And I don't know when the tables turned. I don't know what happened.
Then the next morning, on February 17th at 11:04 a.m, Essex police received the following phone call.
Essex Police Emergency.
Hi there. Okay. Hello. I need police and a forensics team to my address, please.
What do you mean? What's happened?
My friend and I got into an altercation, and I'm the only one who came out alive.
Are you telling me you've killed somebody?
Yes, I am.
18-year-old Lewis Danes had murdered 14-year-old Breck Bednar on Breck's mother's birthday. We're not sure at what point during the night this happened, at what point things changed and Lewis became violent. No one knows at what point it happened, but on the next morning, Lewis contained himself and he made that calm, collected call to the emergency services, just giving himself up.
I got the knife. Can you not interrupt me with this part?
Okay, go on.
Okay. This is being recorded anyway, isn't it?
Yep.
I grabbed the knife and I stabbed him once in the back of the neck, I believe somewhere near the brainstem.
As you can tell from Lewis's 999 call, I can't play it all at once because it's copyrighted. I'm really sorry about that. But he's just so calm. He's breathing perfectly. He's not stuttering. He doesn't sound like he's just killed someone. He doesn't sound panicked. He doesn't sound nervous. He sounds just so eerily confident. He's speaking with absolutely no emotion. He's talking like he's telling the plot of a film he's just watched. He's not talking as if he's reliving this murder that he's just committed.
I don't remember exactly what happened, but the fight ended with me cutting his throat. I believe I turned around and I slashed his throat. Look, are the police on their way? I can hear something.
They are.
I'm going to go and do my part. Please, thank you for your help.
Right, just listen.
Within minutes of Lewis's phone confession, the police arrived at his flat in Essex. Immediately, police found the murder weapon, a knife, just on the floor in the hallway, just like Lewis Danes said on the phone. They found bin bags with clothing in and other evidence that suggests that this wasn't a murder in self-defense, but I'll get into what was in those bags in a second. They found hard drives and other pieces of technology just submerged in water so that they would be destroyed. Who knows what they contained, but Lewis did not want the police looking through them. We can probably guess, based on Lewis's record, that there were some kind of indecent images of children on there, and on top of his murder charge, that would have made his time in prison so much longer. He obviously knew he was in trouble. He gave himself up to police, so he was just trying to minimise his sentence as much as he possibly can, maybe. There were blood stains all over the apartment, suggesting either a struggle or possibly that he'd killed Breck and then maybe moved the body. And there was also evidence that Lewis had tried to clean up some of the blood in the apartment and probably given up halfway, considering there was blood all over anyway, but he'd actually tried to clean up some of it. Lewis also took off all of his clothes that were blood soaked. He had a shower, he got changed all before the police got there. But one of the arguably sickest parts of this whole case was that Lewis Danes, before the police got there, took his phone, took photos of Breck's dead body and the crime scene, all the blood and everything, and sent these photos to two of Breck's friends. Somehow the news of Breck's murder also made it to social media, we can probably guess at Lewis's hands. And so news of Breck's death was travelling fast. A lot of strangers and kind of acquaintances knew before Breck's own family knew.
My brother, Sebastian, he got a text from his friend and it said, "If what happened to your brother was real, I'm really sorry." We had no idea what was going on. I thought he had been mugged or something. Carly thought he had ran away.
Lewis Danes was arrested at the scene. He was charged with murder and he was taken to the nearest police station to be questioned while all of the kind of evidence inside the flat was being collected and analysed and things. Breck's body was found laying face down on Lewis's bed. He had stab wounds to his neck, which meant that he died in less than a minute. But the main piece of evidence as to why Breck's death couldn't have been in self-defence, it had to have been a planned murder, was that in those bin bags full of clothes, there was also duct tape found. And when these pieces of duct tape were positioned together and placed together, they fit exactly around Breck's wrists and around his ankles, which means he must have been bound at some point. And Lewis Danes' recent online purchases also show that he was very guilty in this, and that it might have also had a sexual element to this crime. He obviously bought the tape online. He actually also bought condoms online. And I don't know how police know this next bit of information, so I don't know how accurate this is, but they found that Lewis Danes had his fly of his jeans open at some point during the attack. Like I said, I don't know how they would know that. Possibly some form of, maybe there was a blood spatter in the zip. I don't know how they would know that, but they claim to know that. And in the forensic testing of the apartment, they actually found a semen sample mixed in with the blood on the floor while it was still wet, which suggests that the sex was not consensual because it was either during or after Breck had been injured and was bleeding. Not that anyone thought that the sex was consensual to begin with, there was nothing else to suggest that it was consensual, but that just pretty much confirms it. Meanwhile, in Lewis's police questioning, he was sticking to his story. He was saying that he killed Breck by accident in self-defence. He thought that Breck was going to hurt him or kill him, and so he did what he had to do. Lewis said that Breck became suicidal that morning. He was inconsolable, he wasn't thinking in his right mind, and he grabbed a penknife off the side of Lewis's bed, and he was either threatening to hurt Lewis with it or to hurt himself with it. And so Lewis claims that he got up, he wrestled this penknife from Breck to save either one of them, whoever Breck was going to hurt, and this just angered Breck. Breck didn't like that Lewis was trying to control him and not letting him use this penknife. And so Lewis claims that at this point Breck came at him in anger. Lewis thought that Breck was going to hurt him or kill him at this point, and so that was when Lewis stabbed him in the side of the neck. And this is how we pretty much definitely know that Lewis was lying. Breck, from the stab wound on his neck, he would have died within seconds, in less than a minute of getting that stab wound to his neck. But at this point, Lewis says that Breck turns round and carries on trying to fight with him. After this stab wound, Breck would not have been able to get up and try to fight because he would have been bleeding out at such a fast rate that he wouldn't have been able to stand. He would have been going dizzy. He would have been dying in seconds. He wouldn't have been able to fight. But Lewis claimed that Breck carried on trying to fight him, and that is when Lewis, quote, slashed his throat. Lewis then claimed that he tried to stop Breck's bleeding. He did everything he could to stop his bleeding, but there was just nothing that he could do, and Breck passed away on his bed. Lewis said that he then got in the shower, contemplated killing himself, but then ultimately decided to give himself into the police. So Lewis Danes pled not guilty to the murder of Breck Bednar, and so his trial was set for November of 2014. Lewis was dubbed by the media as the babyface killer because, look at him. He looks like a child. He was 18 years old and he looked younger than his 14-year-old victim. So the trial rolled around in November of 2014, and normally right at the start of the trial, before the two sides start giving their evidence, start arguing who's innocent, who's guilty, The accused, so Lewis Danes, would get up and say his plea, so guilty or not guilty, just to say it out loud at the start of the trial. That's just how things are in court. Obviously, his plea was not guilty. He was just supposed to get up onto the stand and say not guilty, and then the two sides would start giving evidence. That's just how things go in court. But of course, nothing's that easy with Lewis Danes. Lewis got up onto the stand. The judge asked him how he wanted to plea, and Lewis said guilty.
It was shock, absolute shock. I just like, what did he say? I thought I misheard, because all along he had said not guilty, and all along his whole life was fabricated around lies and manipulation and control.
And this was just one last manipulation technique. Lewis Danes just wanted to hurt people. He just wanted to hurt Breck's family just that little bit more before he went to prison for life. He knew he was going to be going to prison for life. He gave himself up on the phone, for Christ's sake. He knew that he wasn't going to be leaving this courthouse an innocent person. And so for one last kind of thrill, he thought he would trick the whole courtroom and just say guilty when he'd been saying not guilty up until this point. Then in January of 2015, Lewis Danes was sentenced to life in prison with a minimum of 25 years for the murder of Breck Bednar.
No amount of years behind bars will ever change the poisonous attitude and actions of a psychotic animal who can behave this way. No amount of years will bring back the lovely boy taken from us.
But then a year later, in January of 2016, Lewis Danes still continues to terrorise the Bednar family from inside his prison cell. Lewis Danes posted two kind of social media online blog posts from inside his prison cell, just full of slanderous things about Breck's family, about the murder, just a lot of untrue things as well. And there's not much like coverage on these posts for obvious reasons. One, it's illegal for him to be able to post online, post on social media, just talk about this murder. I don't know how he did it. I don't know if he was smuggled a phone in. I don't know if someone else wrote it for him outside, whether he wrote it all down like himself and then gave it to someone to post online. I don't know how that happened. Obviously, the police know how it happened and they're keeping it very quiet because it is illegal and it shouldn't have happened. So something went wrong on their side, so they're obviously not going to make it public news that this happened. And another reason that there's not much coverage on these posts is that there was a lot of like personal information in them about Breck's family, a lot of information about the murder that hadn't been released, like nothing too interesting, otherwise I would have put it in this video. But just a lot of information that only Lewis Danes would have known. And these posts are still on the internet now, which I find absolutely insane that they haven't been taken down. Like, I sat and read these posts, I sat and read Lewis Danes' own words in my research for this case, and I just think that's so crazy. Obviously, I'm not going to go into details about what's in these posts. I haven't. I've just kind of skimmed over everything that's in them, just out of respect for Breck and his family. Like I said, a lot of the things in these kind of posts were like untrue, they were slanderous, they were exaggerated, so if you do go and find them yourself, just take it with a pinch of salt. Not everything is true, a lot of it is slanderous, a lot of it is exaggerated. But there must be some kind of truth to them, because Breck's mother knows that Lewis wrote these posts, because there's things in these posts that only Lewis and Breck would have known. So that's how Lauren knows that Lewis does have access to the internet somehow.
And I know it's him because there's some things that have some bit of information in it that only he and Breck would know. And so I know it's him.
Since his murder, Breck's family have set up a kind of charity, a movement called the Breck Foundation, which helps to promote kind of internet safety and warn children and just anyone against the dangers of online predators and just online grooming in general. Of course, I'll have the website linked down below. You can donate to the foundation on there. You can read up on what they do as part of the Breck Foundation. It talks about like all the different talks that his mother gives to like school children and just everything that they're doing in Breck's memory. Lauren Lefebvre, Breck's mother, has travelled all over the UK giving these internet safety talks, just teaching children how important it is to stay safe online and not to talk to anyone, not to let yourself get manipulated by strangers online. Lauren didn't want Breck to die for no reason. If Breck had to die in such an awful way, Lauren wanted to flip that and use it to promote good, to stop any other children going through anything like this. And I'm sure it has saved either a life or just a lot of hurt for a lot of different families. These talks that Lauren gives, like, I think they're so important to have in schools nowadays. And that is one of the reasons why I wanted to do this video so much, because I do worry a little bit having an audience that is so young. Like I said, my demographic is all over the place. I have men, women, everyone. I have so many different age ranges, but my kind of main demographic is young, like pre-teen kind of ages, and it does worry me that you watch videos like this, I must say. But it worries me even more that you could be putting yourself in situations like this. And that is one of the main reasons that I do these videos, to warn people of the dangers of other people in this world. And this is getting really deep now. But if you see this video, you that's watching this video right now, if you see this and then you get into a situation like Breck did, or if your child one day gets into a situation like Breck did, me making this video, I hope that helps. I hope that you can identify like the different kind of warning signs of a manipulative grooming relationship like that, because I've told this story. So yeah, I really hope you took something from this story. It's so sad, and Breck he seemed like such an amazing person. Obviously I didn't know him, but he seemed like such a happy, intelligent, just amazing young boy that was going to grow up to do so much. He was going to be so smart. He was going to be such an asset to the world. And it's just so sad that he was taken so young. And also, the police work in this case, I think it's so important to talk about cases like this as well for that reason, so that people can be aware that the police aren't always 100%. And like, as much as we want them to be, if you have something as important as this going on in your life and the police seem to be taking a long time, just pester them. It's worth it. It is so worth it. Don't think that you're bothering the police. That is what they're there for, to protect you. And if something like this is going on and you've put in a police report and it's taking a long time to happen, ring them again and just say, I've put in a report, I'm really concerned, is this being followed up on? And I just think that this case can teach us a lot about a lot of different things. But yeah, that completes this case. Thank you so much for watching all the way through. And now I'm going to tell you where I've been. Oh my gosh. So as a lot of you know, I do struggle with mental health issues a little bit, and I'm not going to get into that too much right now. Well, I'm not going to get into it at all. Basically, I suffer with a couple of different mental illnesses, and I've not been having a very easy time recently. So yeah, I just took a little bit of a break just to let my brain calm down, because it was gonna burn out. It was going on overdrive, and I needed a break, and that's what I had. And now I'm back and I'm better and I'm feeling good and I'm ready to make some content for you. Another thing I do want to say is that I will not be attending Summer in the City this year. Honestly, I'm heartbroken. Honestly, and I'm sure you can tell if you follow me on Instagram or Twitter, you know how heartbroken I am about this. I can't attend again because of the state of my mental health at the moment. Like I said, I'm better, but I'm better in the way that I can go back to making YouTube videos, because I do these in the comfort of my own home. It is so much easier than going to London by myself, staying in a completely different city at the other side of the country by myself for a full weekend. Like that, I'm not that good yet. I'm not better in the way that I could do that yet, but I'm definitely better in the way that I can come back to YouTube and I'm feeling refreshed in my kind of mindset, and I'm ready to make so much more content for you. I've missed you so much. And one last thing I do want to say, I'm going to end this video on a high note. I am planning a true crime week very soon. If you've been a part of my channel for a long time, you'll know that I used to do like themed weeks a few months ago. I used to do like 1 week every month and it had like a theme, but that was before I used to put so much effort into my content. Don't get me wrong, I've always put effort into my content, but now I just It's so much more. And honestly, I love my videos so much better when I put more effort into them, so there's no way I could do a full week of uploads every month now, but I just wanted to do a full week of uploads to kind of make up to you that I won't be at Summer in the City. Honestly, I am so heartbroken. All I wanted to do was see you guys and hug you and thank you for watching my videos in person, but I mean, I can do that right now. Thank you so much for just watching this video for this long, for being subscribed to my channel if you are. If you're not subscribed, like, that's fine. Just the fact that you have sat through this video for this long means the absolute world to me, and I can't put it into words. I can't. This is unreal to me, this job, and you guys, and I've honestly never been so happy in my life as I am being a YouTuber. This is the most amazing thing that ever happened to me, and thank you so much. And that is exactly what I wanted to say to you all at Summer in the City that I now won't get a chance to do, but I will be there next year, I promise you, with every bone in my body. I will be there whether it kills me. But yeah, wow, I got really into that, didn't I? Yeah, there's gonna be a true crime week. It's not gonna have a theme, but the theme, okay, yeah, it's got a theme. The theme is requests. Because a lot of my videos are requests. This one was very heavily requested. But I mean, some of the videos I choose myself because, like, my family have suggested them, which is technically a request, isn't it, actually? But I don't know, a lot of the cases I do go out and find myself. But the theme of this week that's coming, I'm not going to give you any dates for it, just so that I'm not kind of tying myself to a particular date, just in case it's not ready by then. Don't want to stress my brain out any more than it has been over these past couple of weeks. But yeah, the theme of the week is going to be requests. So every single case in that week is going to be a really highly requested case from you guys. I've already got so many ideas for it, but make sure you comment in your requests down below because I'm going to be choosing them for that week. And yeah, again, thank you so much for watching this video. Thank you if you've ever watched any of my videos before. Those of you that sit and binge watch every single one of my videos, that makes my heart like grow 10 times its size. You don't understand how much you've done for me just by watching my videos. It's completely changed my life and I'm getting really soppy. Why? But yeah, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a thumbs up on it because that really helps me out. It helps YouTube to suggest videos that you guys like and like something to do with that recommended bar down there. I don't know what's going on. But yeah, leave a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you want to see some more content like this from me because, like I said, I've got a full week of it coming. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. I've said that so many times. I love you so much and I will see you in the next one. Bye. Oh my god, I'm so soppy. Calm down, Ellie.